What up guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here today and I'm back with another video. Now today's video we're going to react to IvaN the Unstoppable, his video on how strong is Sun Wukong from the myth. Now I have watched this guy's channel before, I've just never made a video on him. I think his channel is pretty cool, he has some pretty cool videos, like he does videos like I do where it's kind of like power scaling videos talking about different characters, how powerful they are and their accomplishments and their feats, but he mainly focuses on all forms of different characters, mainly characters from comic books, but I have seen him venture off into anime and manga and stuff. But he usually ventures sticks to comic books, and he does a lot of these power scaling videos, which I think they're interesting. I think he's definitely a top level power scaler, and obviously we hear the more well known power scaling names, but I don't hear his name very often. And I'm not saying that I agree with all of his videos or his, statistics or his scaling, but I do think he's actually a pretty decent one, and he's pretty fair with his, with his analysis. And I'm not making this video to critique his one because I haven't checked it out yet. I'm just doing this because I don't know enough about Sun Wukong, but from what I've heard from, from people about his feats and his mythology, it's ridiculously OP. I mean, usually when it comes to godly creatures or godly beings from, mythology, they are stated to be very powerful, but their feats aren't that impressive. Even if you go to Greek or Scandinavian, lore of mythology, a lot of these mythologies, Egyptian stuff like that, they have some interesting feats, but they aren't that really ridiculously OP. But when it comes to Sun Wukong, from what I've heard, he has some of the most ridiculously OP feats in mythology. Now, I might be making a bold claim, and it might not be correct, but I think from what I've heard, the Sun Wukong and the Chinese, mythology has some of the most OP godly beings in all of mythology. If you were to compare other mythologies like Greek or Norwegian or whatever, and or Celtic or any other ones, I think they would definitely have the most powerful, because from the feats I hear, they have some ridiculous ones. It's something on the level of comic book characters or ridiculously OP anime characters, so it's pretty impressive. Now before I get into this, I do want to say a big thank you to Good and Don Clifton for subscribing to this channel. Sorry for not mentioning the name. I was gonna say it in a couple of my videos ago, but I kind of forgot, and I was gonna say it yesterday, but I also forgot. So sorry. Once again, thank you to Good and Don Clifton for subscribing to this channel. This channel, ever since it hit 100, has been growing up actually steadily fast, and it's just great. And I've been having some nice comments from you guys, and I just want to produce the best videos for you guys, and try to go upload consistently for my schedule as much as possible for you guys, because I really do love making videos, and I love communicating with you dudes, and and just talking to all of you guys about these different topics and what I think and what you guys think about it. So yeah, let's get into it.
This being known as Sun Wukong, a being born from an immortal stone on the Flower Fruit Mountain. He was born when it split open. Throughout his adventures, he spent his time with a lot of monkeys. They even dubbed him the Monkey King, but he did not want to die no matter what, so he sucked out immortality no matter what. Therefore, going on his journey, crossing seas and continents, he ended up getting a whole bunch of sort of abilities and went through crazy amounts of power progression and got layers and layers into immortality, which I'm going to show you later on in this same vid. Ended up clashing with the gods and ended up acquiring almost every power known to man, becoming on some cosmic being type status, but you're going to see how this video goes. Before I even get started with anything, I must just tell you right off gate that this being is stated in his lore in the book. He's able to alter the course of planets and freaking stars, but let's get it, Sun Wukong. This being known as Sun Wukong went through some crazy evolutions through his journey. He actually ended up evolving to become his own Buddha, which is a part of this, but not quite yet this. He ends up evolving to where he becomes this, to where this is just a mere shadow of this all along. But I'm going to get to that later on. And these are all the reasons why Sun Wukong is freaking invulnerable and immortal, which I'm going to go over later in this vid. I haven't really got into myth-type characters, but some people have been requesting it. Beings like Sun Wukong, for one. You would honestly be surprised from how many fictional characters we like that are inspired from this character. Beings all the way from Pokemon, Digimon, Goku himself from Dragon Ball Z. He's a big inspiration to animes. That's why you see characters using the power pole or staff type combat. Matter of fact, even characters from Ruby you would not expect to be based off of him. Like this character that has a tail and uses this. And what a character to be inspired from, because this guy's ridiculously overpowered. Let's get it. He's a character that has every major power you can think of, but he has immense strength. Despite his amazing strength, you would think he wouldn't have no staff combat skills, but he does. Sun Wukong is a character from the book's Journey to the West, and it's a lot to process. Some wouldn't want to even be bothered by all of this content. Hey, but the things I do for you guys, right? The Journey is such a appropriate title because he literally went on a journey to earn the favor of the gods, earn his place among them, became kind of a rebel in the process. Yeah, he was kind of a busybody bad butt. like bruh, stay out of trouble, you know? He's one of those characters that actually do exercise in the books. This whole page right here explains and tells you that he's literally a good fighter, requiring martial arts attire, talking about his martial arts prowess and magical powers, which I'm going to get to in a bit. It also helps that he's gotten into a lot of fight with other deities to show his skills, that he can fight beings that are super powerful as well. I'm not going to lie, he's known to be using the staff. That's what a lot of the characters he is based off of use, the staff, but he can also use other type of weapons as well, just all around versatility wise. I'm talking, and here's all the type of weapons Wukong can use, teaching his monkey army how to fight. To really get a good idea of his strength and raw striking power in general is his battle feats, going up against the forces of heaven themselves throughout his adventures. Sun Wukong even withstood stuff that almost blew away the universe or split it apart, like ridiculousness. It's thanks to one of the beings that he has fought. They were pretty much stalemating each other at this time period. The wind this entity produced fighting Sun Wukong changed heaven and earth. Yeah, the entities he had to fight had the abilities to destroy the universe as well. So yeah, even before becoming a Buddha himself, he had ridiculous universe-shattering type feats. Took on these deities from heaven. Might I add that among the deities was many constellations, which are literal a group of stars forming an organizing pattern, and he fought 28 constellations. And if that's not enough, there's even narration. The cosmos themselves was in shambles. The scrap and scuffle alarmed both demons and gods. The clamor and clangor disturbed heaven and earth. Planet was darkened by hurtling rocks and stones.
Okay, so yeah, let's get into this. Like I said, I haven't seen anything about him. I just heard some of the feats. He showed a little bit of gameplay from the, like the Monkey King game. I can't wait for it to come out. I don't know when it's going to come out. From what I've seen from the gameplay trailers, it looks amazing, and it does have quite a bit of his powers in it, so I can't wait to see that. Also, him talking about the Journey to the West, it kind of makes me want to read the book itself, not for, to make a video, but just to enjoy it for my own personal meaning. Because it sounds interesting, especially with like the power scaling. It's crazy that they had such absurd feats in such an old ancient text. Because let's be honest, when it comes to older like mythologies and stuff, they have big statements, but not really that in depth. Like usually, some people might say, "Well, oh, the Greek gods and stuff are universal because some of them are primordials that created the universe and stuff like that." But let's be honest, that's through their understanding of the universe itself. In their mind, they probably thought the universe was a lot smaller and a lot less complex and a lot easier to make. So it wasn't that high of an implication. But when it comes to this, they have multiple talks about different layers and destroying constellations and this and that. Obviously, they will also now have a full understanding of these celestial objects and how absurd it is to do these things. But I'm pretty sure that they still understood the emphasis of how ridiculous it is, just not to our extent. But when it comes to like Greek characters, some people might say, well, this character beat up this character that created the universe. But let's be honest, and their interpretation of it, they're not trying to say that these characters are actually universal beings. They never really make any statements throughout Greek mythology or Norse mythology or Egyptian mythology. They might have some, I don't know, because I'm not a perfect historian. I do know quite a bit because I do check out a lot of these channels that do it, just except for this one. But usually they rarely, if ever, talk about universal levels of power, or planetary levels of power, or star levels of power. They do have some ridiculous feats like Zeus turning people into constellations and stuff like that. But like I said, their understanding of it was very limited, so they don't really go in depth in the craziness, and they don't focus that much on more absurd feats. Whereas when it comes to Sun Wukong, he's the only character in mythology that has countless feats and statements of ridiculous proportion, whereas the other characters, when they do it for like I said, usually Greek because that's the most well-known one, it's what's the thing called, it's always a throwaway like line. Those lines about like universe stuff. It's very they don't go into it very in depth, and it's always a throwaway line. So it feels like it's not an importance them being like universal level threats, but they focus on it quite a bit with Sun Wukong. So it makes it more it makes him sound more powerful because they have a literal fixation on his crazy accomplishments, whereas in like other mythologies they didn't really do it. So I would definitely put Sun Wukong on the top tier. He's the only character in like mythology, godly being that could actually match up to godly beings in modern day fiction when it comes to comic books and anime and manga, because they've done it to the craziest extent. And it's surprising also to see older people like from centuries ago, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, create beings that are also as powerful as we create nowadays, because we understand more complex ideas about science and the universe itself.
Just as collateral damage, he can literally shake continents. Collateral of his battles shake 4 continents. That's 1 continent. That's 2. 3, literally straight up stated that Sun Wukong can alter the course of planets and even stars. He battled all the deities for an entire day without any rest because he does not feel fatigue. But what's his physical power like? With his raw strength, it's confirmed he can drag the moon down. In this context, used him like a weapon because they think he's without a weapon. This would mean he could twirl around quintillions of tons and use it as a weapon at the bare minimum already. Technically, even when mountains fall on him, mountains by themselves can't hold him down. Matter of fact, he's strong enough to carry 2 mountains. And the fact that he can carry these 2 mountains on himself while running at the speed of a meteor, so it's like casual, one could say, if he can run that fast with all that weight on him. Mount Sumeru and stuff, talking about how they can't hold him down. The religion on which this mountain is based off of, in their mythical lore, it's a sacred 5-peak mountain and is considered the center of all the physical, metaphysical, and spiritual universes. So one could say he didn't just hold up the weight of an ordinary mountain. So one could look at him lifting up this mountain not just being a mountain type lifting feat, but it can be like an immeasurable type of incalculable type lifting feat. These feats are so absurd, I can't even imagine this animated. How do you have one mountain on one shoulder and do you have another mountain on another shoulder? Sun Wukong. One of the best ways to get an understanding of his speed is one of the times where a being actually got the upper hand over Sun Wukong for one. Shocking, right? The Buddha himself is one of those few beings who's pretty much God. Buddha made a deal saying, if you can get out of his gigantic hand, which is the size of the universe, then you can ascend or whatever. They even describe it like a streak of light hurtling relentlessly. It's confirmed with a single somersault. He can jump 180,000 miles. Realistically, with one jump, he could circle the earth 7 times with a single jump. He even went to the edge of heaven that fast. He's like quadrillions or quintillions times faster, way faster than the speed of light. But he still lost his context because technically the universe itself all fits in Buddha's hand. So no matter how far he jumped, he can't really get out of his palm. But honestly, regardless of how you look at it, even if you see him jump from one end of his hand to the other, that's still way faster than light. He's basically jumping from one end to the universe to the end, up to the other end, Yeah, he's ridiculously fast, but technically never left his hand. That's how Buddha is. But yeah, later on in the video, I'm going to tell you about how he eventually becomes his own Buddha and higher, blah, blah, blah. You know how Goku has the power pole? Let's just say that Sun Wukong changes the entire meaning of power pole extend, because when he extends his weapon, it can go to absurd lengths. It can fill up the entire universe on how big it can get, aka infinitely expand. Not only can his staff grow big, but he can also transform, which I'm going to get to later, and grow big himself if he wishes. His staff and himself can grow big. So he apparently has a weapon that can extend during combat and grow to the length of the universe as he wishes. Not only can the weapon grow freaking stupid long, but he can apparently grow to the size of the universe himself if he wishes to. Even if he wants to be small, he can be smaller than a piece of hair because he has boundless ways of transformation and incalculable means of becoming visible or invisible. Regardless of how you perceive this, whether if you think he's getting as big or can get as big as an observable universe or an infinite.
Okay, so they mentioned the universe multiple times in his feats comparable to it. So yeah, they want to emphasize how ridiculously powerful he was, universe level. And like I said, their understanding of the universe was far different. They didn't know that how big the universe was, or how complex it is. But still, it doesn't matter. In the end of the day, the context of it does fit quite well into the power scaling and how ridiculous it is. And even through their limited understanding, it's still pretty a ridiculously feat. And like I said, all like compared to the other mythologies and the other godly beings, they don't really harp on that levels of power all the time. They're not focusing on they destroy this and that. Usually, they're just talking about what are they the god of and what powers they have, and just usually just stories on how they mess around with mortals, and basically just like fun little stories. Whereas this one, it's more about like a mangaka writing an OP character just going through this journey and become even more ridiculously powerful, or just doing ridiculously powerful feats. It's just crazy to me. And to think that you would think Goku, as powerful as he is, he would have feats on his level, but even if you want to say Goku at this point is stronger than him because he's usually capped off at universe level, he still has shown more consistently, powerful feats than Goku, which is just crazy to me to think. It's just insane. But like I said, their thought of the universe is a lot smaller. So like for us, we know it's like there's observable. Sorry, I can't really pronounce that word. Observable, whatever. You know what I mean. What we can see from the universe is 93 billion light years. They weren't thinking that. They probably thought it was a lot smaller, but still, it's ridiculous to think that they, thought he could grow that big and do all this stuff. He's definitely a universal level being easily. This is just crazy to me to think that people back then had this high levels of, power scaling.
Size universe, that kind of puts him on some cosmic being type status, being infinite in size if he wished. So you already know he can change size, has crazy physical strength and all that crazy stuff. His raw power alone kind of makes him on some cosmic being status, but this guy is ridiculously versatile, my dude, when it comes to being able to do different type of things, not just brute strength and overall power in general. Like on top of his transformations, he can make clones of himself, like on some shadow clone jutsu type stuff, and these clones are ridiculously powerful as well. Even if we're talking about thousands of clones, even up to billions of clones of himself, tell me why each one of these strands you see all over his body can turn into 10 of himself, more clones, then those 10 can turn into more 10, and it's like an infinite number of himself that can be running around. Like, bruh. What? How there are 84,000 hairs on this monkey being. One of them can change into 10 of him, and then those 10 can change into 100, all the way to millions and billions. He can already make clones, and he has 72 transformations, and each one of those 72 has 72 lives. Another cool thing about the hair and cloning and all the BS with the hair, just plucking a few hairs, threw them into his mouth, chewed them into pieces before spitting them out. He recited a spell and cried change. They changed into many sleep-inducing insects, aka he can create life forms out of his hair with his spells and magic and stuff.
When was Journey to the West written? Because like when I'm thinking about like Greek and stuff like that, those are like before Christ and stuff, so they're like BC, so not even AD. I'm thinking this is not that old. Maybe it's the 1600s, so they probably had a far better understanding because a lot of these other terminologies and stuff, they're a little more like scientifically in depth. And I know China was definitely a more advanced civilization, especially with astronomy and stuff. You did have that also in Greece with all these philosophers and stuff, and a lot of big theories we got, or understanding of the world or universe had come from them. Some of their stuff was a little bit wrong, but they did get out pretty good for how limited it was. But China was definitely advanced with their astrology and stuff, so they would have a better understanding of the universe. Them and the Arabs and the Muslim nations, they definitely had better knowledge of it, and especially in the 1600s, that's a lot different because they're now in the AD era, while they were in the BC era. So it makes sense why there would be more limited. But even then, it's like 1600s. The fact that they have some of these terminologies and stuff, like talking about billions and all this other stuff, it's mind baffling. Maybe it's because maybe I'm just a little bit ignorant due to the fact that we live in a modern day age and we think of people back then were pretty dumb or either completely dumb. But still, for them to know things like this is quite interesting, and how in depth the writers were for Journey to the West. I definitely gotta check it out, and I will do more research on Journey to the West. But from the information that he's giving me, it seems pretty legit. I think he did a really good job. Diving deep into the analysis of Sun Wukong and just showcasing how powerful he is without using any BS to over exaggerate it. Which I don't like when these power scalers do it. Some power scalers do overdo it. They say, well, it was stated in this, so it means exactly this, or try to overhype it or overball. But he's showing countless proof and evidence, and he's going very well in depth in it. And it probably took him hours. I know it takes a lot of time to do videos like this that require heavy amounts of research. So I definitely commend him on that. IvaN the Unstoppable, he's pretty top tier YouTuber. I would definitely recommend him to you guys. I'll put the link in the description down below for his channel and for this video if you guys want to check out the original video for yourself. But yeah, he has some very in-depth things that he's going into.
Also, and created a thunder spirit. Yeah, he legit making life forms out here. Did I mention that Sun Wukong is obsessed with life? He's perfected in the many arts of ageless life. Talk about immortality. Cut off his head won't necessarily work. Sever his arms, he can still beat you up. His legs amputated, he still can walk. Belly ripped open, will heal again. So obsessed with life and immortality, he doesn't even remember his age. He pretty much explains here this is why he's invulnerable, thanks to his immortality of him stealing and eating the immortal peaches, celestial wine, and the golden elixir. He basically gave himself an invulnerable body, not just immortality itself. Drinking all these elixirs and stuff like that refined his stomach to form a single solid mass. The union with his constitution gave him a diamond body which cannot be destroyed. They even used the word cosmic being, fully fused with nature's gifts, thanks to all this stuff and fruits and elixirs and refining all this power, ascending even further, getting an indestructible body. In the process of him eating that stuff, merging his body to make his body even more durable, basically indestructible, he has extra. This guy got magic body protection on top of all this BS. On top of all this immortality, he got more defense around his body to protect him even further, despite him already having a crap ton of protection, immortality type stuff already. Throughout his adventures, he's learned all types of magic, not just that defense type of magic I just told you about a second.
So he has immortality, and then he put insane durability on himself, and then put durability protection from magic, which is kind of redundant and pointless if I'm being honest. He seems kind of like a paranoid character of all things considered. Like the fact that you already have immortality means you're unkillable, like I stated in my other video, which I talk about. There's actually ways to beat immortal person, but he had all that. And then he has all this. I'm not surprised that he would have all magic, because most of these godly beings do want to learn about all magic, like the Allfather from, Norse mythology with Odin. He also wanted to learn everything, but him knowing every magic is pretty interesting. Also, when he was talking about this, I kind of wondered, after Ragnarok, I wonder where the God of War franchise is going to go. People are saying they're going to go to Egypt. If they go to different mythologies and kill these other godly beings, or try to stop himself, I really want to see Kratos versus Sun Wukong, and see how he can handle him and how they're going to implement his ridiculously overpowered feats and stuff. But yeah, Sun Wukong seems like a very interesting character, especially with his powers and all of his stuff, and his a little bit of a paranoia with not dying.
Second ago. Matter of fact, the staff or weapon he likes to use can technically ignore durability. It's kind of like how Black Panther can harm top tiers even though he's physically not strong enough with his punching power without the vibranium claws. Same with Wolverine. He doesn't have the physicals of Hulk level beings, but his claws basically ignore durability. That's kind of how Sun Wukong's staff is. But he actually has the strength though on top of it. An example would be how they say a small stroke with this piece of iron is deadly and a light tap is fatal. So you don't have to put much force behind it for it to be lethal. Of course, you already know about his magic power to change, whether it be making duplicates or change his shape or just using his magic, grew 6 arms and can use a whole bunch of different weapons at once. They call the conflict earth shaking, making the very mountains tremble. He can actually make a whole bunch of these sticks if needed. Wukong had to counter a whole bunch of stuff with his iron rod by making a whole bunch of them at the same time. He can also make himself invisible by the magic of body concealment. On top of Sun Wukong's raw power, he can blow, partly his magic spell, making him be able to blow with breath that toppled trees and cut down forests, making ocean waves rise like mountains. He can basically blow with breath to make tsunamis as big as mountains. Implied he can manipulate water with magic signs, water manipulation, because the waves parted for him. Magic signs or spells to technically create a planetary storm that will affect big parts of the earth. Vast formation moved over the world. Black fog and dusty vapor darkened the earth. All this is self-explanatory. Wind manipulation, one could say. I mean, it makes sense he can ride on the clouds, right? Water cannot drown him. He can even do some John Constantine type stuff by literally drawing circles in the ground to make his own barrier for protection, stated to be as strong as an iron wall. Remain seated inside and no harm will come to you. Yep. But if you leave the circle, it will be danger for you. He knows spells to repel water, spells to repel fire, nor can thunder hurt him either. He's confirmed to be able to fight beings that shouldn't be touchable. This makes sense because we have seen him stand on clouds and stuff like that. Intangible things. Doesn't need sleep. He can destroy magic. He can overturn rivers and stir up oceans. Is implied he can do some Doctor Strange, astral projection, entering spirit mode type of stuff. You already know he can do all kinds of things like turning into small bugs and stuff. I mean, we're talking about a being that can just change his durability by just saying change. And then they become as hard as steel, aka increasing his durability or his overall stats in general. He's so mighty in this state, becoming a Buddha. This form is already divinity, but think about this one just being the ultimate form. But this is considered like a little aspect of the unfathomable glory of this because this is incomprehensible for the human eye. It's a cosmic entity type form without actual shape and everything. It's a literal aspect. Kind of like in DC Comics, in my DC Comics videos, like how we have these universes inside this little bubble here. The gods outside here have to make small versions of themselves out here to go in here, because their true selves out here is too much for the glory of these little small universes inside here. They're bigger than the actual universes. That's kind of the same concept of this true form of the Buddha, the ultimate manifestation. They say all forms will be emptiness. All Buddhas become part of this. Like this, he's basically a cosmic type being. I mean, look how they explain everything. Mind is Buddha and the Buddha is mind. Both mind and Buddha are important things. If you perceive there is neither mind nor thing, yours is of the true mind, has no shape or form, cosmic type being type status. The bodiless body is the body true, and real form is that form which has no form, bruh. There's no form, no void, no emptiness. No coming, no leaving, no contrast, no sameness, no giving nor taking, no hopeful craving. Buddha's whole realm is in a grain of sand. One mind or body's like 10,000 things. To know this, you must grasp the no mind spell. More explanation on this state is that it's a transcendent state in which there is neither suffering, desire, nor sense of self, and the subject is released from the effects of karma and the cycle of death and rebirth. It represents the final goal of Buddhism. When you look at the actual definition of it on Google, when it comes to nirvana, shown here. But yeah, he's a freaking force to be reckoned with. Don't compare him to nobody unless it's cosmic beings, especially if you compare his Buddha self, which is just a piece of his true undescribable self here at the very end, but that's none of my business. Do you respect him? I tried my best to not make it super absurdly out of the ordinarily confused when it comes to these cosmic type beings. Hopefully you kind of could follow along and enjoy this anyway.
So that was IvaN the Unstoppable's How Strong Sun Wukong myth. I think that was a great video. He went very well in depth in it, though I do think his final form, which he didn't pronounce the name, so I'm not gonna do that either because it seemed kind of complex to say. But it seemed like it didn't have as much as information as his Buddha form and his original form. They had more feats with that one. They're just saying he transcends this and that, and I think maybe obviously he's like a trans-dimensional being or whatever. Maybe it's just the point where it's not easy to explain, or maybe the writers were like, you know what, it's kind of complex to go into this, and they also themselves didn't understand enough, because reaching nirvana or enlightenment basically means transcending all physical aspects, so it's kind of hard. I think the best way to describe it would be to if you guys ever seen the show Stargate, there's these beings called the Ancient Ones, and these people were like one of the original civilizations throughout the universe, and they basically ascend into a higher dimension or a higher plane of existence. So they barely fought, but they were like unbelievably godly beings. Though that was their own interpretation of it, it does kind of fit into this. There's some characters in other fictional universes where they transcend and they go to another dimension, and usually it's very vague on what they can do or what they're capable of. And I felt the same way with him. I guess you could just a lot of assumptions is going to have to go into it if you're going to be talking about that level of power, like, oh, whatever he can do in that state, he can do even better in this one. So he's well beyond that, and he was already at universal levels of states already in there. So he's already ridiculous. I definitely put him at the most powerful mythological godly being or mythological being in all mythology. But what about in fiction, in comic books and manga and anime? I wouldn't say he's the most powerful in those, but he is definitely a top hitter. He has a lot of things going for him. He is very, very hard to beat. And I definitely have to check out the Journey to the West story myself and read more into it to understand more of his, power and where he lies in, because it's quite complex and it's quite intricate. And I just want to learn more about the story itself as a whole. I think it's quite interesting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for next time.